The wind howled like a living thing that night, tearing through the mountains of the Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. Snow whipped across the landscape in furious spirals, erasing everything in white. And in the middle of that storm, a 5-year-old girl was walking barefoot through the drifts, her tiny arms clutching two swaddled bundles to her chest. Her name was Lily Reynolds, and if she stopped moving, her baby brothers would die. Snowflakes stung her eyes as she forced one foot in front of the other. Each step sank into snow that nearly reached her knees. Her thin jacket offered little protection against the biting cold, and her mittens were soaked through. The skin of her feet had gone from burning pain to a strange numbness that frightened her more than the pain had. Beneath the blankets pressed to her chest, the twins Noah and Ethan whimpered weakly. Their tiny fingers were stiff and pale, their cries fading into the roar of the wind. "Just a little more," Lily whispered, though she could see nothing ahead but endless white. "Mommy said Uncle Jack lives in the glass house on the hill. We have to find him." The sound of her own voice kept her from collapsing. She was 5 years old, but tonight she was the only protector her brothers had left. Somewhere behind her, the cabin where they had been hiding was already buried in snow. Her mother had said she would come back soon, just needed to find help. But she never did. The last thing her mother had said was, "If something happens, find your Uncle Jack. He will keep you safe." So Lily walked toward the faint memory of a big house her mother had once described as the glass palace where the stars come to sleep. She did not know where that was exactly, only that if she stopped, her brothers would stop breathing too. The wind grew wilder, clawing at her face. Her lips had turned blue, and the tears freezing on her cheeks felt like tiny needles. But ahead, through the curtain of white, she saw a flicker of gold, a light, faint but real. Her small heart hammered. Maybe it was the house. Maybe it was warmth. She stumbled forward, half running, half crawling through the storm. Her foot caught on a frozen branch beneath the snow. She fell, twisting to shield the babies from the impact. Pain shot through her knee, but she did not cry. She only looked down at the twins and whispered, "Almost there. Uncle Jack will help us. Mommy said he would." By the time she reached the iron gates, Lily could barely stand. Her legs trembled so hard they might snap. The mansion beyond looked unreal, its windows glowing like golden eyes through the snow. A long driveway wound upward to a massive glass entryway. She started climbing one step at a time, her small boots leaving faint prints that were instantly swallowed by the wind. Halfway up, her vision blurred. Everything tilted sideways. She pressed her cheek to the twins' heads, feeling only the faintest warmth. "Please," she whispered to no one. "Just a little more." Inside the mansion, Jack Westwood had just poured himself a glass of whiskey when the sound came. A faint, desperate knocking beneath the howl of the storm. He almost ignored it. No one came here this late, not in weather like this. But something about that sound, sharp and hollow, made his pulse tighten. Jack was 62 years old, with silver threading through his dark hair and lines etched around his eyes that spoke of both success and sorrow. His tall frame still carried the strength and posture of a man who commanded boardrooms. But tonight, alone in his glass fortress, he looked older, more vulnerable. He stood in his study surrounded by awards and accolades, the trappings of an empire he had built from nothing. Westwood Technologies had revolutionized medical imaging, saving countless lives. But Jack Westwood could not save the life that mattered most. In his hand, he held a photograph of his daughter, Claire. She had been dead for 10 years now, killed in a car accident on her way home from a piano recital. A recital Jack had missed because he was closing the biggest deal of his career. The knocking came again, impossibly faint yet somehow insistent. Jack set down the whiskey in the photograph, moving toward the door with a frown creasing his forehead. The security system showed nothing on the cameras, just snow and darkness. Yet the sound continued, like the tapping of a bird with a broken wing. When he opened the front door, the wind burst in like an explosion, scattering snow across the marble floor. And there, collapsed at his feet, was a tiny girl, her hair frozen in strands of gold, her face blue with cold, clutching two motionless bundles wrapped in blankets. For a moment, Jack could not breathe. Years in business had taught him to control panic, but this was something else entirely. He dropped to his knees, pulling the children into his arms. "Maria," he shouted toward the kitchen, "call emergency services now." The housekeeper came running, froze at the sight, and gasped, Dios mío, they are babies. Jack stripped off his cashmere sweater and wrapped it around the small girl, his fingers trembling as he felt for the infant's pulses. Weak, but there. Still there. As he carried them inside, something small and cold slipped from the edge of the blanket, a silver bracelet etched with fading letters. He caught it instinctively, and the world seemed to tilt beneath his feet. The engraving read, Property of Catherine Westwood. His heart stopped. That name, that impossible name. His sister. The sister he had not spoken to in 7 years. The sister he had sworn he would never forgive. The fire roared to life as Maria hurried back with warm towels and heated blankets. Jack laid the twins by the hearth, checking their breathing while his mind spun with questions. How could these be Catherine's children? His niece and nephews? A family he never knew existed? The little girl stirred, lips trembling. Her eyes fluttered open eyes of emerald green, the same shade Catherine had. The same eyes that had looked up at him with hero worship when they were children, before money and pride and stubbornness had carved a canyon between them. She looked up at him, dazed but determined. Are you Uncle Jack? She whispered. Mommy said you would help us. The words cut through him like a blade. For the first time in years, Jack Westwood felt his carefully constructed composure begin to crack. He gathered the child closer, the firelight flickering over his face as he said softly, Yes, sweetheart, I am your Uncle Jack. You are safe now. Outside, the storm raged on, swallowing the world in white. Inside the mansion, for the first time in a decade, the silence was broken by the sound of life. A small cry, a shuddering breath, a whisper of hope. Jack did not yet know the full story behind the children's arrival or the heartbreaking secret that waited in the days ahead. But as he looked down at the girl who had walked through the snow to save her brothers, one truth hit him harder than the cold ever could. The family he had abandoned had found him anyway. The night had nearly swallowed the world when Jack carried the 3 small bodies into the warmth of his home. The fire snapped to life as Maria Torres, his longtime housekeeper, rushed forward with blankets and warmed milk. She froze at the sight of the little girl's face, pale lips, trembling eyelids fluttering, and the 2 tiny boys pressed close against her chest. Sweet Lord, she whispered, they are just babies. Jack's hands moved with the precision of muscle memory, checking vital signs and warming cold limbs. Though it had been years since he had practiced medicine before turning to the business side of healthcare, his body remembered what to do. We need to get their temperature up now, he said. Hot towels, heating pads, anything. Within minutes, the grand living room of his glass mansion, once cold and silent as a museum, transformed into a field hospital. The snowstorm outside pressed against the windows, a ghostly reminder that death still lingered beyond the glass. Lily Reynolds lay wrapped in wool blankets on the leather sofa, her hair damp from melted snow. Her tiny fingers still curled around the edge of the blanket where her brothers lay. The twins' skin was pale as porcelain, their breathing shallow. Jack worked in silence, warming milk on the stove while Maria rubbed the baby's hands and feet. He inserted a small thermometer under one infant's arm, then another. 94 degrees, he muttered. They are hypothermic, but they will survive. Maria handed him another towel. He rubbed the baby's arms until faint cries filled the air. Those cries, thin and desperate, yet undeniably alive, broke something inside him. He felt an ache he had not allowed himself to feel since his wife and daughter had been lowered into the ground 10 years ago. When Lily stirred again, her voice was so soft he almost missed it. My brothers, are they okay? Her eyes, green and luminous even in the firelight, searched his face for truth. They are safe now, Jack said, kneeling beside her. You are safe too. Her small hand gripped his wrist with surprising strength. Mommy said you would help us. He froze, his pulse stuttering. What did you say? Mommy said, she whispered again, her words halting. Uncle Jack will help us. She told me to find you. For a long moment, he could not breathe. Uncle Jack. The name struck like thunder in his chest. He looked down at the little girl's face, saw the faint curve of a smile that was achingly familiar. Catherine had the same smile when they were young, the same stubborn the same warmth in her eyes before life had hardened both of them. Maria, he said quietly, bring me the bracelet. She lifted it gently from the table where he had placed it, and Jack turned it over in his hand, tracing each letter with his thumb. Property of Catherine Westwood. The bracelet he had given his sister for her 16th birthday, engraved with her name because she was always losing her things. The sound of the storm outside seemed to fade as memories flooded back. Catherine, the sister he had once loved fiercely and then lost to pride and anger. The one he had sworn never to see again after she walked away with Michael Reynolds, a man Jack believed was only interested in the Westwood fortune. He had told himself he was done with family after losing Claire, that he was better off alone with his empire and his regrets. And yet here it was, family literally dropped at his doorstep by fate and snow. Maria's eyes welled with understanding. Is it her? Your sister? Jack nodded slowly, his throat tight. It has to be. The firelight flickered against the glass walls, and for the first time in years the house felt human again. Alive, imperfect, trembling with emotion. Jack sat near the sofa, watching the children sleep. Every few minutes, he reached out to touch the twins' hands, checking for warmth, listening for the rhythm of their breathing. Lily, curled beneath a thick blanket, slept with her hand still holding his sleeve, as if afraid he would vanish if she let go. He stayed like that until dawn, staring into the fire, the weight of guilt settling deeper into his chest with each passing hour. How long had Catherine been out there? Why had she not called? What kind of brother had he become? One so buried in his own success that he did not notice when his only sister disappeared? When the first light of morning slipped through the tall windows, the storm had passed. The mountains stood calm under a sky washed clean. Lily awoke to the scent of pancakes and coffee. She blinked, disoriented by the vastness of the room and the sound of crackling wood. Maria smiled softly from the kitchen doorway. Good morning, sweetheart. Are you hungry? Lily nodded timidly, her eyes searching for her brothers. They are sleeping like angels, Maria said, gesturing toward the plush bassinet Jack had ordered delivered at dawn. Noah and Ethan lay bundled together, their cheeks pink with new warmth. Jack approached slowly, a plate in one hand, a glass of orange juice in the other. He set the plate before her, pancakes cut into small pieces, syrup on the side. Eat, he said gently. You have earned it. As Lily ate, Jack noticed the bruises on her arm, purplish marks that peeked from beneath her sleeve. Too perfectly formed to be accidental, too similar to fingerprints. His jaw tightened, but he kept his expression neutral. Lily, he said carefully, where is your mother now? The little girl set down her fork, her eyes suddenly guarded. She went to find help when the snow started. She said she would come back. Her voice trembled slightly. But she told me if she did not come back, I should find you. She said you lived in a house made of glass where the stars sleep. Jack smiled despite himself. That sounded like something Catherine would say. And your father, where is he? Something dark flickered across the child's face. Daddy is with Victoria now. They live in the big house in town. Victoria? My new mother, Lily said, but the way she said it made Jack's skin crawl. She does not like us much, especially me. Jack was about to ask another question when his phone rang. An unknown number. He answered, keeping his voice professionally neutral. Jack Westwood speaking. Mr. Westwood, came a woman's voice, saccharine sweet. This is Victoria Reynolds. I believe you have my stepchildren. Jack's eyes flicked to Lily, who had gone completely still at the sound of the voice coming through the speaker. Her small body seemed to fold in on itself, making her appear even smaller. Mrs. Reynolds, Jack replied evenly. Yes, your stepdaughter found her way to my home last night during the blizzard, with her infant brothers. Oh, thank God, Victoria exclaimed, her voice dripping with what sounded like rehearsed relief. My husband and I have been frantic. We woke up and they were simply gone. Lily has been troubled lately. She sometimes wanders off, imagines things. We will come right away to collect them. Jack watched as Lily shrank further into the sofa, her eyes wide with unmistakable fear. I am afraid that will not be possible today, Jack said smoothly. The roads are completely blocked with snow. Emergency services advise against any travel. The children are safe here until the roads clear. But they need their medication, Victoria insisted, a hard edge creeping into her voice. Especially Lily. She has... Episodes. Jack caught the flicker of confusion on Lily's face. I assure you they appear perfectly healthy. What medication would that be exactly? There was a pause. Perhaps I should speak with my husband, Victoria said coldly. He will want to video call his daughter. By all means, Jack agreed. I will have Maria set up the call when he is ready. 10 minutes later, the tablet screen flickered to life. Michael Reynolds appeared, a handsome man in his early 40s with worried eyes and a weak chin. Behind him stood Victoria, a strikingly beautiful woman with golden hair and a smile that did not reach her eyes. Lily, sweetheart, Michael exclaimed. Are you okay? We were so worried. Lily nodded silently, her eyes downcast. Mr. Westwood, Michael continued, I cannot thank you enough for taking them in. My wife and I have been beside ourselves with worry. It was quite a shock to discover my sister had 3 children I knew nothing about, Jack replied, studying the man closely. Michael had the grace to look embarrassed. Catherine and I, we had our differences, but I never meant to keep the children from their family. After our separation, communication became difficult. Separation? Jack raised an eyebrow. My niece was under the impression her mother went looking for help during the storm. Victoria leaned forward, placing a manicured hand on her husband's shoulder. Lily has a very active imagination, Mr. Westwood. Catherine left us nearly 3 months ago. We have been caring for the children alone since then. Jack glanced at Lily, whose hands were now clenched into tiny fists. This was not adding up. Well, Jack said carefully, as I mentioned, the roads remain impassable. The children will stay here until conditions improve. I will have my assistant collect whatever they might need from your home. Victoria's smile thinned. That is not necessary. We will come for them ourselves, tomorrow at the latest. When the call ended, Jack turned to find Lily staring at him with those piercing green eyes. She is lying, the child said simply. Mommy was with us yesterday. She is sick, very sick. Jack knelt down to her level. Can you tell me more, Lily, about your mother being sick? Lily looked down at her hands. Mommy has to go to the hospital a lot, but she said if Victoria or Daddy knew where we were, they would take Noah and Ethan away from her. She said they want the money that belongs to us. Jack felt a chill that had nothing to do with the snow outside. What money, Lily? Grandpa's money. Mommy said when she dies, the babies get Grandpa's money, and Victoria wants it. Jack straightened, his mind racing. Their father had died 3 years ago, leaving a substantial fortune to both Catherine and Jack. But Jack had never claimed his share, letting it sit in trust while he built his own empire. Maria, he called, get me Daniel Morris on the phone and contact Caroline Winters at the law firm. While Maria made the calls, Jack returned to Lily, who was now looking through her small backpack. She pulled out a worn teddy bear and a folded piece of paper. Mommy said to give you this, she said, holding out the paper, if I found you. Jack unfolded what turned out to be a page torn from a journal. Catherine's handwriting, once flowing and elegant, now appeared shaky and rushed. Jack, if you are reading this, Lily found you. Thank God. I am out of time and options. The doctors give me weeks, not months. Leukemia, stage 4. I tried to reach you so many times, but pride kept getting in the way, mine and yours. Michael changed after we married. Or perhaps I just refused to see what was there all along. By the time the twins were born, he was gambling away everything we had. Then came Victoria, his business associate. He moved her into our home while I was in the hospital. She wants the children's trust fund from Dad. Actually, she wants the twins. Lily she sees as a threat because Lily sees everything. Please believe what Lily tells you. She has witnessed more than any child should. I am sorry to put this burden on you after everything, but you are the only one I trust, the only one with the power to stand against them. Please protect my children. Please be the brother I remember, not the one I left. I never stopped loving you, Jack. I never stopped believing you would come through if it truly mattered. It matters now. Catherine Jack read the letter twice, his hands shaking. He looked up to find Lily watching him, her eyes too old for her face. You believe me, right? She asked quietly. Jack folded the letter carefully and placed it in his pocket. Then he reached out and gently touched the bruises on her arm. I believe you, Lily, he said, his voice firm and clear. And I promise you this, no one is taking you or your brothers anywhere. Not as long as I am alive. The little girl who had walked through a blizzard to save her brothers looked up at the powerful man who had spent a decade hiding from his pain. In that moment, a pact was sealed between them. The past could not be undone. The future held dangers neither could fully see. But right now, in this glass house on the mountain, they had found each other. And that would have to be enough to face what was coming. Morning sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Westwood mansion, casting long fingers of gold across marble floors. Outside, the world remained buried in white, pristine, and undisturbed, except for the occasional pine branch surrendering its burden of snow. Inside, Jack Westwood stood in his office, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in the measured tones that had closed billion-dollar deals and intimidated corporate rivals. I need everything you can find on Michael and Victoria Reynolds, financial records, criminal background, medical history, especially anything related to Catherine Westwood and her children. On the other end of the line, Daniel Morris listened carefully. Once a decorated detective, now the most discreet private investigator in Colorado, Daniel had been Jack's eyes and ears for over 15 years. "This is family business, Jack?" Jack watched through the doorway as Lily sat cross-legged on the living room floor, carefully arranging wooden blocks for her brothers to knock over. The twins lay on a plush blanket, chubby hands reaching for the colorful towers their sister built and rebuilt with endless patience. "Yes," Jack replied. "My sister's children. I just discovered they exist and that they may be in danger." After ending the call, Jack approached the small backpack Maria had found in the snow near where Lily had collapsed. With gentle hands, he began sorting through the meager contents: a change of clothes for each child, a small photo album, a stuffed bear with one eye missing, and at the bottom, wrapped in plastic, a leather-bound journal. Catherine's journal. Jack hesitated before opening it, feeling like an intruder. These were his sister's private thoughts. But if what Lily said was true, if Victoria and Michael truly meant the children harm, he needed to understand what they were facing. The journal's pages were filled with Catherine's distinctive handwriting, though the once fluid script now trembled across the paper. Jack turned to the most recent entries, dated just 2 weeks prior. "The pain is worse today. The medication barely touches it now. But I cannot go back to the hospital. Not yet. If I do, Victoria will know where we are. Michael has put out a missing persons report claiming I abducted my own children, as if he ever cared for them before. Victoria wants the twins because of father's trust, 10 million to each grandchild, to be administered by their guardian until they turn 21. She has convinced Michael I am unfit. Perhaps I am now, with the disease eating me from inside out. Lily knows too much. She saw Victoria push me down the stairs last month. Victoria claimed it was an accident, but Lily saw her face, saw the intent. My brave girl. She pretends to sleep when Victoria comes to check on them at night. She has learned to make herself invisible when Michael drinks. I must find Jack. I have been too stubborn, too proud. Even if he turns us away, I have to try. For my children." Jack closed the journal, his chest tight with a mixture of rage and grief. While he had been building his empire, shutting out the world, his sister had been suffering, fighting, dying. In the living room, Lily laughed softly as Noah grabbed her finger. The sound, innocent and bright, struck Jack like a physical blow. These children, Catherine's children, were all he had left of his family, and he had nearly missed knowing them at all. His phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. Victoria Carson before she became Victoria Reynolds. 3 arrests for fraud in Nevada. Charges dropped. Worked at 4 different elder care facilities, each time leaving after wealthy residents changed their wills. Marriage to Michael Reynolds 3 months after meeting him at a charity fundraiser. Catherine moved out 6 months later. Jack's jaw tightened. The pieces were falling into place, revealing a picture darker than he had imagined. Victoria was not merely unpleasant, she was dangerous. And Michael, the man Jack had dismissed as merely a fortune hunter, now seemed more pathetic, a weak man under the control of a predator. "Lily," Jack called softly, "may I ask you something important?" The little girl looked up, nodding solemnly. "Where was your mother taking you before the storm? Where were you staying?" Lily's forehead creased in concentration. "A little house in the woods. Mommy said it was a secret place where we could be safe until she got better." "And before that, where did you live with your mother?" In the yellow house in Denver. But we left in the night because Victoria was being mean to Mommy again. Jack knelt beside her. Did you see your mother get hurt? In the house with Victoria? Lily's eyes darkened with a shadow no 5-year-old should know. She nodded once. Victoria pushed Mommy down the stairs. Mommy fell and there was blood. Victoria told Daddy that Mommy fell because she was sick and confused. But I saw Victoria push her. She looked at Mommy like she hated her. Jack fought to keep his expression neutral, not wanting to frighten the child with the rage building inside him. Thank you for telling me the truth, Lily. You are very brave. The child looked up at him with Catherine's eyes. Are you going to help us find Mommy now? She needs medicine. Jack nodded, reaching out to smooth her tangled blonde hair. Yes, Lily, we are going to find her today. By noon, Jack had assembled everything they needed. A full security detail would remain at the mansion while he traveled to Denver with the children and Maria. His medical contacts had already begun searching hospitals for a woman matching Catherine's description, possibly admitted under an assumed name. As Maria helped Lily pack the few things they had, Jack's phone rang again. It was Daniel. I found her, Jack. Denver Memorial Hospital. Admitted under the name Kate Wilson 3 days ago. Terminal leukemia. They have her in the oncology ward, room 314. Jack's heart constricted. She's alive. But from what I could gather, not for long. You need to hurry. The drive to Denver took 3 hours on roads still partially covered with snow. Jack sat in the back of the Escalade with the children, watching as Lily pointed out landmarks to her infant brothers, with the boundless enthusiasm of a child who had not yet grasped the finality of what was coming. That's where the eagles live, she announced, pointing to a distant cliff. Mommy showed me, and over there is where the river sleeps under the ice in winter. Jack marveled at her resilience, at the way she had absorbed her mother's poetic view of the world despite the darknesses that had surrounded her short life. He wondered if Claire would have been like this at 15, filled with wonder despite her father's endless work calls and missed recitals. Denver Memorial Hospital rose like a concrete giant against the afternoon sky, windows reflecting the winter sun. Jack carried Noah while Maria held Ethan, Lily walking between them, clutching Jack's free hand. They moved through the sterile corridors with purpose, ignoring the curious glances from staff who recognized Jack Westwood, the billionaire whose face occasionally graced the covers of business magazines. Outside room 314, Jack paused, suddenly uncertain. 7 years of silence. 7 years of stubborn pride on both sides. What would he say to the sister he had abandoned? Lily tugged his hand. It's okay, Uncle Jack. Mommy misses you too. Jack took a deep breath and opened the door. The room was quiet except for the steady beeping of monitors and the soft hiss of oxygen. Sunlight filtered through half-drawn blinds, casting the room in a gentle glow. In the center of it all, a frail figure lay beneath white sheets, her once vibrant blonde hair now thin and dull against the pillow. But when her eyes opened, those familiar green eyes, mirrors of Lily's, mirrors of their shared past, Jack forgot how to breathe. Jack, Catherine whispered, her voice paper-thin. You came. For a moment, time collapsed. Years of silence, of pride, of regret melting away like snow in sunshine. Lily broke free from Jack's grasp and ran forward, her small feet padding against the linoleum. Mommy, we found Uncle Jack, just like you said. Catherine struggled to sit up, her trembling arms reaching for her daughter. Lily climbed carefully onto the bed, burying her face in her mother's shoulder as tears streamed down both their cheeks. My brave girl, Catherine murmured. You brought your brothers to safety. Jack stood frozen in the doorway, Noah still cradled in his arms, unable to move, unable to speak. When Catherine looked up at him again, her gaze softened and her lips curved into a faint knowing smile. You haven't changed as much as you think you have, Jack, still saving the day at the last possible moment. He stepped forward at last, his throat tight with unshed tears. I should have come a long time ago. Catherine's hand trembled as she reached for him. We were so young, Jack. We said terrible things. I said terrible things, he corrected, moving to her bedside. You were right about so many things, and I was too proud to see it. She let out a weak laugh that turned into a cough. Pride, the Westwood family curse. keeps you warm until it kills you. Jack gently placed Noah in her arms, watching as his sister's face transformed with love as she gazed down at her son. Maria brought Ethan to her other side, and for a moment the family was complete, broken, scattered, and then reunited. "They look like you," Jack said softly, noting the shape of Catherine's eyes in the twins' faces. "They have his chin," she replied, a shadow crossing her features. "Michael's contribution." Jack hesitated. Lily mentioned their father. "Michael is weak." Catherine turned her gaze to the window where afternoon light painted the room gold. "David Allen was charming once, said all the right things, but when the money ran out, so did his affection. When father died and the trust was established, Victoria appeared, his assistant from the law firm." Her voice hardened. "She moved into our home while I was in the hospital after the twins were born. Premature. Both of them. I was still recovering when I found them in bed together." Jack's fists clenched. "And he chose her over his family?" "He chose money. Victoria convinced him I was unstable after the pregnancy, that my episodes made me unfit to manage the children's inheritance. Then came the accidents. A loose rug at the top of the stairs, brakes that suddenly failed on my car. And the final push," Jack said quietly. Lily saw it. Catherine nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "My poor baby. Victoria didn't know she was watching. After that, I knew we had to disappear. I took the children and what little cash I had saved. But then the diagnosis came, and I knew I needed help. I needed you." Jack took her hand, noticing how light it felt, how the bones seemed like bird wings beneath paper-thin skin. "Why didn't you call me sooner, Catherine? Whatever happened between us, would you have answered?" she asked, her voice gentle but knowing. "After Claire and Sarah died, you shut everything out. Everyone. I tried calling after the funeral. Your assistant said you were unavailable indefinitely." Jack closed his eyes, remembering how he had instructed his staff after the accident. No calls, no visitors, no reminders of the family he had lost while chasing success. "I'm sorry, Catherine. So sorry." She squeezed his hand weakly. "No more apologies. We're here now. That's all that matters." They talked for hours as the winter sun tracked across the sky. Catherine sharing stories of Lily's first words, the twins' birth, the small moments of joy she had carved out of difficulty. Jack listened, memorizing every detail, storing away the sound of his sister's voice like a treasure against what was to come. As evening approached, Lily and the twins fell asleep on the small couch in the corner of the room. Catherine watched them with a mother's fierce love and desperate sadness. "Jack," she said finally, her voice steadier than it had been all day, "I need you to promise me something." He leaned closer, hearing the urgency in her tone. "Anything. When I'm gone, they will come for the children, for the money. The twins each inherit $5 million from father's estate. Lily has her own trust, smaller but still substantial. Victoria wants control of it all." "I won't let that happen," Jack assured her. "I'll get the best lawyers." "It's not that simple. Michael is a county judge now. He has influence in the courts. And Victoria, she is more dangerous than you can imagine." Catherine's eyes darted to the sleeping Lily. "She hates my daughter. Because Lily sees through her. Because Lily is the only witness to what really happened that day on the stairs." Jack felt cold despite the warm hospital room. "What can I do?" "Get DNA tests done immediately. Prove you're their uncle. File for emergency guardianship before it's too late." Catherine's breathing grew labored, the words costing her precious strength. "The cabin where we were staying." "There's evidence there. Photos, recordings, things I gathered to protect my children." A soft knock interrupted them. A nurse peeked in, her expression professional, but eyes widening slightly when she recognized Jack Westwood. "Mrs. Wilson, there's a woman asking to see you. Says she's your sister-in-law." Catherine's face drained of what little color it had. "No," she whispered. The door opened before Jack could respond, and Victoria Reynolds stepped inside. In person, she was even more striking than on the video call, tall, elegant, with honey blonde hair styled in an expensive bob. Her clothes screamed old money, a camel hair coat over a silk blouse and tailored pants. Her smile was dazzling and utterly false. "Catherine, thank goodness we found you." The concern in her voice sounded rehearsed, like an actress who had practiced her lines but missed the emotion behind them. Michael and I have been worried sick. Jack rose to his full height, imposing even in casual clothes. Mrs. Reynolds? Victoria's eyes widened in calculated surprise. Jack Westwood. I had no idea you were in contact with Catherine again. How wonderful. Her gaze swept the room, lingering on the sleeping children. Something dark flickered behind her eyes when she saw Lily, quickly masked by another brilliant smile. The children look exhausted, poor things. I should take them home where they belong. Michael is waiting in the car. They're staying with Ma, Jack said, his voice quiet but unyielding. Victoria laughed lightly, the sound like glass breaking. That's very kind, but unnecessary. They have a home, Mr. Westwood. A familiar environment is so important for children, especially with their mother. Unwell. Catherine struggled to sit up straighter, her face contorted with effort. Jack is their guardian, Victoria. In the event of my death, it's in my will. A will no one has seen, Victoria countered smoothly, her smile never faltering. And given your mental state these past months, highly questionable. The monitors beside Catherine's bed began beeping faster as her heart rate increased. You tried to kill me, Catherine whispered, her voice suddenly stronger. Twice. Victoria's expression didn't change, but her eyes hardened to chips of ice. Catherine, this is exactly the kind of paranoid delusion the doctors warned us about. I've only ever wanted what's best for you and the children. Leave, Jack commanded, moving between Victoria and his sister's bed. Now. Victoria opened her mouth to respond when a small voice cut through the tension like a knife. You pushed my mommy down the stairs. I saw you. Lily stood by the couch, small fists clenched at her sides, eyes burning with a child's pure, unquestioning certainty. You pushed her and then told Daddy she fell. But I saw you push her. You wanted her to die. Victoria's mask slipped for just a second, revealing something ugly and vicious beneath. Then the perfect smile returned. Children have such vivid imaginations, she said smoothly, especially troubled ones like Lily. Her therapist has been very concerned about these fantasies. She doesn't have a therapist, Catherine said through gritted teeth. Another lie. Victoria sighed dramatically, pulling out her phone. I had hoped to avoid this unpleasantness, but you leave me no choice. Michael is a judge, Catherine. Your erratic behavior, taking the children without permission, these absurd accusations. It would be a simple matter to have you declared unfit, to have the children placed in our custody immediately. She turned to Jack, her voice hardening. And you, Mr. Westwood, you may be wealthy, but interfering in a custody matter, harboring children against their legal guardian's wishes. Not even your money can shield you from those consequences. Jack stepped closer, using the full force of his presence, the same intimidating energy that had crushed corporate rivals and hostile takeovers. Let me be perfectly clear, Mrs. Reynolds. I have resources you cannot begin to imagine. I have contacts in every level of government, law enforcement, and the judicial system. If you or your husband come near these children before this is settled legally, you will regret it for the rest of your life. Victoria's smile finally vanished. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Neither do you, Jack replied softly. After Victoria stormed out, the room fell silent except for the rapid beeping of Catherine's heart monitor. A nurse rushed in, checking readings and adjusting medication. You need to rest, she admonished Catherine gently. Your body can't handle this stress. When they were alone again, Catherine reached for Jack's hand. You see what we're up against, she whispered. Michael is under her control completely. The courts. Jack, promise me. Promise you'll keep them safe. Jack knelt beside her bed, pressing his forehead to their clasped hands in a gesture of oath and penance. I promise, Catherine. With everything I am, I will protect them. 3 days passed in the quiet rhythm of the hospital. Jack arranged for private security outside Catherine's door. He contacted Caroline Winters, the most formidable family law attorney in Colorado. DNA samples were taken and rushed for analysis. Jack moved between his sister's bedside and makeshift office in the hospital waiting room, setting in motion the legal machinery that would protect the children. Daniel Morris dug deeper into Victoria Reynolds' past, uncovering a pattern more disturbing with each discovery. 3 elderly patients who had changed their wills in her favor while she worked as their caregiver, all dead within months, no charges ever filed. A former boyfriend who drowned in a boating accident after naming her the beneficiary of his life insurance. Bank accounts in the Cayman Islands under various aliases. On the fourth morning, Jack arrived at the hospital to find Catherine sitting up, looking stronger than she had in days. Lily sat beside her on the bed, carefully braiding her mother's thinning hair. The twins lay in their portable bassinet, kicking chubby legs at the mobile Jack had installed above them. "You look better," Jack said, hope rising in his chest despite the doctor's warnings. Catherine smiled, but there was something in her eyes, a knowing, an acceptance. "I needed to see them like this. One more time, all together." Her voice was clear, present in a way it hadn't been before. "The doctors are wrong about how much time I have left." Jack started to protest, but she shook her head. "I've known my body was surrendering for months, Jack, but I needed to hold on until they were safe, until I found you." She reached for his hand, her grip surprisingly firm. "There's something else you need to know. Something I haven't told you." Jack sat on the edge of the bed, bracing himself. "When Father was dying, he asked to see me. Not you. I think he knew you wouldn't come. He made provisions for my children specifically in his will. The trusts are substantial, more than the 5 million each I told you about." She paused, gathering strength. "There's a property in Father's name, a place in Switzerland he kept secret from everyone. He transferred ownership to me before he died. Victoria found the papers. That's when the accident started happening. She wants everything, Jack, and she'll eliminate anyone who stands in her way." Jack absorbed this, the pieces clicking into place. "We'll need to move the children somewhere secure. Today." Catherine nodded. "There's a safe deposit box at First National, box 447. The key is in Lily's teddy bear inside the seam at the back. All the evidence I gathered is there. Recordings, photos of my injuries. My real will, not the one Michael thinks is valid." Jack marveled at his sister's foresight, her quiet strength even as her body betrayed her. "You always were the smarter Westwood," he said with gentle admiration. Catherine laughed softly. "Just the more suspicious one. Growing up with you taught me to always have leverage." They spent the day together as a family, Jack canceling meetings and ignoring calls from his executive team. Catherine told stories from their childhood, making Lily giggle with tales of Jack's failed attempts at cooking and the time he got stuck in a tree trying to rescue a neighbor's cat. As evening approached, Catherine grew tired, her brief surge of energy waning. Lily had fallen asleep curled against her side, and the twins dozed peacefully in their bassinet. "Jack," Catherine whispered, not wanting to wake her daughter, "it's time to say goodbye." He shook his head, throat tight. "No, not yet. The new treatment we discussed. We both know I won't last until morning," she said with the clarity of someone who had made peace with death. "I can feel it, and it's okay. They're with you now. You'll keep them safe." She touched his face with trembling fingers. "My big brother, always trying to control everything, even death." Tears burned behind Jack's eyes. "I just found you again." "You found them," she corrected, glancing at her children. "That's more important. They need you now, especially Lily. She's carried so much on those little shoulders." Catherine's breathing grew more labored, her words coming with greater effort. "Promise me you'll tell them about me. Not just the end, but all of it. The good parts, too." "I promise," Jack whispered. "And promise you'll live again, Jack. Not just work, not just duty. They need you to remember how to laugh, how to play, how to love without fear." Jack could only nod, words failing him. Catherine smiled, her eyes drifting to the window where the first stars had appeared in the darkening sky. "It's beautiful tonight," she murmured, "like the night we snuck out to watch the meteor shower. Do you remember?" "I remember," Jack said, holding her hand tightly, as if he could anchor her to this world through sheer force of will. "Father was furious, but it was worth it," Catherine whispered. "The most beautiful things always are." Her eyes closed, her breathing growing shallower. Jack sat with her through the night, watching as the sister he had abandoned fought her final battle with quiet dignity. Somewhere near dawn, with Lily still sleeping against her side and Jack holding her hand, Catherine Westwood took her last breath. The heart monitor flatlined, its alarm muted by the night nurse who had been expecting this moment. Jack remained still, his mind unable to process what his heart already knew. Catherine was gone. The vibrant, stubborn, loving force that had been his little sister had left this world. Lily stirred, her eyes opening to find Jack's face wet with silent tears. "Mommy's gone to the stars, isn't she?" the little girl asked, her voice small but steady. Jack nodded, unable to speak. Lily looked down at her mother's peaceful face, reaching out to touch her cheek one last time. "She told me she would have to go soon. She said not to be sad because she'd watch over us from the squam." Jack gathered the child into his arms, marveling at her composure, her acceptance of something so incomprehensible. "Your mother was the bravest person I've ever known," he said finally, "and you are so much like her." In the growing light of morning, nurses came to attend to Catherine's body. Jack carried Lily from the room, her small face buried against his shoulder. Maria waited in the hallway with the twins, her own eyes red-rimmed with grief. "We need to leave," Jack told her quietly. "Now, before Victoria learns what's happened." But they were already too late. As they approached the hospital exit, Michael Reynolds stood waiting, Victoria at his side. Michael looked genuinely shattered, his face haggard with grief. Victoria's expression was appropriately somber, but her eyes gleamed with triumph when she saw Jack carrying Lily. "Jack," Michael began, his voice rough with emotion, "I just heard about Catherine. I'm so sorry." "Save it," Jack replied coldly. "You lost the right to mourn her when you chose this woman over your family." Michael flinched as if struck. It wasn't like that. Catherine was sick, confused. Victoria was only trying to help. Victoria placed a manicured hand on Michael's arm. "This isn't the time or place for accusations. We're all grieving." She stepped forward, arms outstretched toward Lily. "Come, sweetheart. It's time to come home with Daddy and me." Lily tightened her grip on Jack's neck, burying her face deeper against his shoulder. "The children are coming with me," Jack stated, his voice leaving no room for argument. Catherine's wishes were clear. "A verbal request from a dying woman hardly constitutes legal guardianship," Victoria said, her voice hardening. "The children belong with their father." "A father who has neglected them for years?" Jack challenged. "Who allowed his wife to abuse his daughter?" "Lies," Victoria hissed, finally dropping her sympathetic facade. "Delusions from a woman whose mind was ravaged by disease and drugs." Michael looked confused, glancing between Victoria and Jack as if uncertain whose version to believe. "Michael's," Jack said directly to the man. "Look at your daughter. Really look at her. She's terrified of this woman. What does that tell you?" Michael's eyes met Lily's, and for a brief moment, something like awareness flickered in his expression. But then Victoria squeezed his arm, and the moment passed. "We'll see you in court, Mr. Westwood," Victoria said coldly. "Enjoy your time with the children while it lasts." As they walked away, Jack felt Lily relax slightly in his arms. "Is she going to take us away from you?" the little girl whispered. Jack looked down at the child who had already lost so much, who had shown more courage in her 5 years than most adults demonstrated in a lifetime. "No, Lily," he promised. "No one is taking you away from me. Not ever." Outside, snow had begun to fall again, gentle flakes drifting from a pearl-gray sky. Jack settled the children in the waiting SUV, security personnel flanking the vehicle. As they pulled away from the hospital, Jack looked back at the building where his sister had drawn her last breath, where his life had irrevocably changed course. The battle for Catherine's children was just beginning. Victoria would use every weapon in her arsenal to claim them and the fortune that came with them. But she had made a critical mistake in her calculations. She had underestimated the lengths to which Jack Westwood would go to keep his promise to his sister, the resources he would deploy, the power he would wield, and most importantly, the love that had awakened in him for these 3 children, a love that had broken through years of isolation and grief, a love that would stop at nothing to protect them. As they drove through the quiet streets of early morning Denver, snow erasing their tracks behind them, Jack made a silent vow to his departed sister. These children would know safety, they would know love, and they would know the truth about the mother who had fought so fiercely to protect them, even with her final breath. The battle lines were drawn, and Jack Westwood had never lost a fight that truly mattered. The day they buried Catherine Westwood dawned cold and clear. The cemetery stood silent under a blanket of snow, sunlight transforming the landscape into a sea of diamonds. Jack stood at the graveside, a black sentinel against the white, Lily's small hand clutched in his. The twins slept in Maria's arms, blissfully unaware that their mother now rested beneath the frozen earth. Only a handful of mourners had gathered for the private service. Daniel Morris stood respectfully at a distance, his watchful eyes scanning the perimeter where private security maintained their positions. Carolyn Winters, Jack's attorney, stood nearby, her expression somber, but her mind already preparing for the battle ahead. Michael Reynolds had not come. Only a wreath of white lilies with a card bearing his name suggested he remembered the woman he had once loved. Victoria had sent nothing. As the minister spoke final words over Catherine's casket, Jack felt Lily's hand tighten in his. He looked down to find her green eyes fixed not on her mother's grave, but on a distant figure watching from beneath the shelter of an ancient oak. Victoria Reynolds stood like a dark flame against the snow, her camel hair coat cinched tightly at the waist, her honey blonde hair gleaming in the winter sun. Even at this distance, Jack could feel the hunger in her gaze as it locked on the children, on the fortune that Catherine's death had now placed within her reach. "She's coming for us, isn't she?" Lily whispered, her voice steady despite the fear Jack could feel trembling through her small frame. "Let her try," Jack replied softly, squeezing the little girl's hand. The service concluded and mourners drifted away, leaving only the Westwood family beside the fresh grave. Jack knelt in the snow, bringing himself to Lily's level. "Would you like a moment alone with your mother?" Lily nodded, her face solemn beyond her years. Jack stepped back, watching as the child approached the casket. From her coat pocket, she withdrew a single paper snowflake, carefully cut by her own hands that morning. She placed it atop the gleaming wood, her lips moving in words too quiet for Jack to hear. When she returned to him, her cheeks were dry, her chin held high with the same stubborn dignity Catherine had shown in her final days. "I told Mommy not to worry," she said simply. "I said you would take care of us now." Jack's throat tightened with emotion he dared not release. Not here. Not yet. Not when the children needed his strength more than his grief. "Always," he promised. "Now let's go home." Home, the word felt strange on his tongue. The glass mansion had been many things over the years, a showpiece, a fortress, a mausoleum to his dead hopes, but never truly a home. Until now, until 3 small lives had filled its empty spaces with possibility. Carolyn Winters approached as they walked toward the waiting vehicles, her expression grave. "They filed for emergency custody," she said without preamble. "Hearing is set for tomorrow morning." Jack nodded, having expected nothing less. "And our countermeasures?" "DNA results confirm you're the children's uncle. We've filed our own petition for emergency guardianship based on Catherine's documented wishes and the children's best interests." "But Jack," her hesitation made him pause. "Michael Reynolds has influence in the family courts. Judge Hamilton is presiding, a longtime golf partner of Michael's. We need to be prepared for an uphill battle." "Carolyn Einstein," Jack said quietly. "I've built a technological empire from nothing. I've faced down corporate raiders and hostile takeovers. I've survived the loss of my wife, my daughter, and now my sister. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, I won't do to protect these children." The attorney's eyes widened slightly at the steel in his voice, but she nodded. "Then let's make sure you can keep that promise." That evening, as snow began falling, once again outside the glass walls of the mansion, Jack sat beside the fireplace, reviewing strategy with Caroline Shandams. The twins slept peacefully in their cribs upstairs, while Lily lay curled on the sofa nearby, her small body finally surrendering to exhaustion after days of vigilance. "The most damaging argument they'll make," Carolyn explained, "is your lack of experience as a parent. Victoria will portray herself as the devoted stepmother, with Michael as the grieving widower, seeking only to keep his family together." Jack watched the flames dancing in the hearth, remembering how Catherine's eyes had reflected similar light in her final days. And what of Lily's testimony about Victoria pushing Catherine down the stairs? Caroline sighed heavily. "Judge Hamilton is likely to discount it. Children's testimony is rarely given significant weight in these proceedings. especially when there's a competing narrative of mental illness or confusion on the part of the deceased parent. Jack turned to look at Lily, her face peaceful in sleep for the first time since arriving at his door. The fierce protectiveness he felt surprised him with its intensity. For years after losing his wife and daughter, he had believed himself incapable of such emotion. He had built walls around his heart, focusing on empire building rather than human connection. Yet this child, this brave, stubborn child, had slipped past his defenses without effort. "We'll need to be prepared for Victoria to play dirty," Carolyn continued. "She'll use your past, your workaholic tendencies, your isolation, possibly even the circumstances of Claire's death to paint you as unsuitable." Jack's jaw tightened at the mention of his daughter. "She wouldn't dare. She'd dare anything to get control of those trusts, Jack. We need to be ready." Morning found them in the imposing marble halls of the Denver County Courthouse. Lily sat beside Jack in a blue dress Catherine had packed in her small bag, her hair neatly braided by Maria's careful hands. The twins, dressed in matching outfits Jack had ordered, slept peacefully in their carrier, oblivious to the battle about to be waged over their future. Victoria and Michael entered from the opposite door, a carefully orchestrated tableau of grieving family. Michael looked haggard, his eyes bloodshot with what might have been genuine grief or merely the aftermath of too much alcohol. Victoria played the supportive wife to perfection, her black dress appropriately somber, her hand placed consolingly on her husband's arm. Only Jack noticed the calculating gleam in her eyes as they swept over the children, lingering on the twins with naked avarice. Judge Hamilton entered, a floored man in his 60s with the assured manner of someone accustomed to absolute authority in his domain. His gaze flicked over Jack with barely concealed distaste, before settling on Michael with what could only be described as sympathy. "These are difficult circumstances," the judge began, after preliminaries had concluded. "The tragic loss of Catherine Reynolds leaves these minor children in need of stable guardianship. Their father, Michael Reynolds, petitions for full custody, which would ordinarily be granted without question." He paused, glancing at the paperwork before him. "However, Mr. Jack Westwood, maternal uncle to the children, has filed a competing petition based on alleged final wishes of the deceased and claims of," he peered over his glasses, "unsuitability on the part of Mr. Reynolds and his current wife." Victoria's attorney, Gordon Phillips, a shark in an expensive suit, rose smoothly. "Your Honor, these allegations are not only baseless but cruel. Mr. Reynolds is the children's father. His right to custody is established by both law and nature. Mr. Westwood is a virtual stranger to these children, having had no contact with his own sister for 7 years before her death." The blow landed precisely as intended. Jack felt the weight of his absence from Catherine's life, like a physical pain. Carolyn countered immediately. "Your Honor, Catherine Westwood Reynolds made her wishes explicitly clear. She feared for her children's safety in the Reynolds household. We have documented evidence of suspicious injuries, including a serious fall down a flight of stairs witnessed by the minor child Lily Reynolds." Judge Hamilton's expression soured. "Ms. Winters, allegations of this nature require substantial evidence, not hearsay from a 5-year-old child." "We have medical records, Your Honor," Carolyn pressed, "and photographic evidence recovered from Mrs. Reynolds' personal effects." Victoria leaned forward to whisper something to her attorney, who nodded and stood again. "Your Honor, any such evidence would have been collected during Mrs. Reynolds' illness, when she was heavily medicated and suffering from paranoid delusions, a documented side effect of her treatment. Dr. Morris Sanders, Mrs. Reynolds' oncologist, can testify to her compromised mental state." Jack's jaw tightened as he recognized the name. Sanders had been Catherine's doctor for precisely 3 days after her hospital admission. Under a false name, a man who had never known her before, the disease had ravaged her body and mind. Yet here he was, prepared to testify about her mental state as if he had treated her throughout her illness. The proceedings continued with a brutal efficiency that belied the life-altering stakes. Expert witnesses paraded before the court, each carefully selected to support Victoria's narrative. Catherine's hospital psychiatrist testified to her paranoid ideation during her final days, conveniently omitting that such symptoms were common side effects of her pain medication. A social worker who had never met the family offered opinions on the importance of maintaining paternal custody. Through it all, Jack maintained a rigid control, his face betraying nothing of the rage and fear battling within him. Beside him, Lily sat perfectly still, her eyes tracking each speaker with an understanding far beyond her years. Occasionally, her small hand would slip into his, a gesture of comfort that humbled him with its generosity. Carolyn fought brilliantly, presenting the DNA results confirming Jack's relation to the children, Catherine's journal entries, and the safe deposit contents. Daniel had retrieved evidence of Victoria's previous identities, suspicious financial transactions, and recordings Catherine had secretly made of threats against her. But for each piece of evidence, Victoria's team had a counter. The journal entries were dismissed as the ravings of a dying woman. The financial transactions were explained away as legitimate business dealings. The recordings were ruled inadmissible due to Colorado's two-party consent laws for recorded conversations. Jack watched as the scales of justice tilted steadily against him, weighted by influence and manipulation rather than truth. Beside him, Lily sat perfectly still, her small face a mask of controlled fear as she listened to adults decide her fate with clinical detachment. Then, unexpectedly, the child stood. "I want to talk," she said, her voice clear and steady in the sudden silence. "I want to tell what happened to my mommy." Judge Hamilton blinked in surprise, looking uncertain for the first time since the proceedings began. "Young lady, this is a court of law, not—" "She has a right to be heard, Your Honor," Carolyn interjected quickly. "This proceeding directly impacts her future. The court should consider her testimony." After a brief conference with both legal teams, the judge reluctantly agreed to hear Lily's statement. Jack helped her to the witness stand, which dwarfed her small frame. She looked tiny and vulnerable in the massive wooden chair, her feet dangling well above the floor. Yet when she spoke, her voice carried a conviction that silenced the courtroom. "My mommy was sick for a long time," Lily began, "but she took care of us. She read to us every night and made sure we were safe." Her clear green eyes, so like Catherine's, fixed on Victoria with unflinching directness. Then Victoria came. She was nice when Daddy was watching. But when he wasn't there, she was mean. She called Mommy crazy. She told me I was stupid. She pinched me when no one could see. Victoria's face contorted briefly before she composed herself into an expression of pained sympathy. "The day Mommy fell," Lily continued, "I was supposed to be napping. But I woke up and went to find Mommy. She was at the top of the stairs with Victoria. They were arguing about money, about the babies." Her small fingers gripped the railing of the witness stand. "Victoria said Mommy was in the way, that once Mommy was gone, she and Daddy would have everything. Then she pushed Mommy. Hard. I saw it. I saw her face when she did it. She was smiling." A murmur ran through the courtroom. Victoria leaned toward her attorney, whispering furiously. Judge Hamilton rapped his gavel for silence. "Young lady," he said, his voice gentler than before, but still dismissive. "Sometimes when terrible things happen, our minds create stories to help us understand them, especially children's minds." "I'm not making it up," Lily insisted, a tremor entering her voice for the first time. "I saw it. She pushed Mommy and then told everyone Mommy fell because she was sick. But it was a lie." Victoria rose gracefully, her expression a perfect blend of compassion and concern. "Your Honor, if I may, Lily has been through a terrible trauma. Losing her mother, the confusion of these past weeks. Her therapist has warned us that she sometimes creates narratives to cope with her fears." "I don't have a therapist," Lily cried, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. "That's another lie." Judge Hamilton sighed heavily. "I think we've heard enough. Thank you, young lady. You can return to your seat." Jack helped Lily down, his heart breaking at the defeated slump of her shoulders. She had told her truth, with all the courage her small heart could muster, and the adults in power had chosen not to believe her. After closing arguments, the judge delivered his ruling with the brisk efficiency of a man whose mind had been made up before the first word was spoken. While Mr. Westwood has established his biological relationship to the children, the court finds insufficient evidence to overcome the natural right of the father to custody of his minor children. Therefore, custody of Lily, Noah, and Ethan Reynolds is hereby granted to Michael Reynolds, with his wife Victoria Reynolds as secondary guardian. The words fell like blows. Jack felt Lily press against his side, her small body trembling. A transition period of 48 hours will be permitted for the children's belongings to be gathered and for them to adjust to the change in circumstances. They will be remanded to their father's custody no later than 5 p.m. on Friday, January 14th. As the court adjourned, Jack remained seated, one arm around Lily, the other hand resting protectively on the twins' carrier. Carolyn leaned close, her voice pitched for his ears alone. "This isn't over, Jack. We'll appeal immediately, and I'm filing complaints against Hamilton for judicial bias." Jack nodded, his eyes fixed on Victoria, who was accepting congratulations from her legal team with the practiced grace of a woman accustomed to getting precisely what she wanted. She caught his gaze across the courtroom and smiled a predator's smile, cold and triumphant. 2 days, Jack said quietly to Carolyn. Make them count. Those 2 days passed in a blur of frantic activity. While Caroline worked to prepare their appeal, Jack set other wheels in motion. Daniel Morris contacted every investigator, hacker, and information specialist in his network, searching for the one piece of evidence that might turn the tide. Security at the Westwood mansion doubled, then tripled. Jack spent every moment he could with the children, reading stories, playing games, memorizing the sound of their laughter as if storing treasures against a coming famine. Lily remained quiet but resolute, her eyes rarely leaving her brothers as if determined to protect them until the last possible moment. The night before the deadline, Jack found her in the nursery, carefully packing the twins' favorite toys into a small bag. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" he asked gently. Lily looked up, her face solemn in the soft light. "Noah needs his elephant to sleep, and Ethan cries if he doesn't have his blue blanket. Victoria won't know these things." Jack knelt beside her, overwhelmed by the child's thoughtfulness even in her own distress. "That's very kind of you to think of your brothers." She nodded, continuing to fold tiny clothes with a careful precision. "Uncle Jack, when Victoria takes us away, will you forget us?" The question struck him like a physical blow. "Lily, look at me." He waited until her green eyes, so like Catherine's, met his. "I will never forget you, not for a single day, and I will never stop fighting to bring you home. Promise?" "I promise with all my heart." On the morning of the third day, with just hours remaining before the children would be taken, Jack sat in his office reviewing security footage from Catherine's hospital room, something Victoria's team had successfully blocked from being admitted in court. The recordings showed Victoria's visit after Catherine's hospitalization, capturing subtle threats and veiled accusations when she thought no one was listening. It wasn't enough, not legally, but it confirmed everything Jack already knew. Victoria Reynolds was dangerous, and she wanted the twins for one reason only: the massive trust fund that would come under her control as their guardian. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Lily stood in the doorway, Noah in her arms. In the days since the court ruling, she had rarely let her brothers out of her sight, as if trying to extend her protection over them for as long as possible. "Uncle Jack, are they really going to take us away today?" The question pierced him like a physical blow. He had promised to protect them, promised Catherine, and he was failing. "Come here," he said gently, making room for her on his lap. She climbed up carefully, still holding Noah, who gurgled happily and reached for Jack's tie. "I'm doing everything I can to keep that from happening," Jack told her honestly. "I have very smart people working very hard to find a way." Lily nodded solemnly. "Victoria doesn't love us. She just wants the money Grandpa left for us." The child's perception never ceased to amaze him. "How do you know about that?" "I heard Mommy talking to her lawyer before we left. She said Victoria only wanted the twins because they're boys, because they get more of Grandpa's money than me." A cold realization washed over Jack. Catherine had mentioned the trusts were substantial, but he hadn't grasped the full implications. If Victoria only cared about the money and the boys received the larger share— "Lily," he said carefully, "what do you think Victoria will do with you?" The little girl's expression was far too knowing for her 5 years. "She doesn't like me. I'm in her way, just like Mommy was." The words sent ice through Jack's veins. Before he could respond, Maria appeared in the doorway, her face pale with alarm. "Mr. Westwood, come quickly. It's Ethan, he's gone." The next hours were a nightmare of frantic searching. Security footage showed nothing, an inexplicable gap in the otherwise constant surveillance. The mansion was searched room by room, grounds combed inch by inch. Police were called, an Amber Alert issued. Through it all, Jack fought rising panic, holding Lily and Noah close as officers questioned staff and security personnel. There had been no breach in the perimeter, no alarms triggered. Someone inside the mansion had taken the child or helped someone else take him. As evening fell, Jack's phone rang an unknown number. He answered immediately, putting it on speaker as Daniel and the police detective nodded encouragement. "You took something of mine," Jack said, without preamble. "I want him back. Now." Victoria's laugh was soft and musical, a sound at odds with the viciousness of her actions. "How quickly we abandon legal niceties when something precious is at stake. Hello to you too, Jack. Where is Ethan?" "Safe for now, and he'll remain that way if you follow my instructions precisely." Jack gripped the phone so tightly his knuckles whitened. "What do you want?" "What I've always wanted. What's rightfully Michael's by marriage. The Westwood fortune your father so inconveniently left to Catherine's brats." "You're talking about kidnapping and extortion," Jack said, his voice deadly calm despite the rage building inside him. "Federal crimes." "I'm talking about family matters," Victoria countered smoothly. "A misunderstanding. One that will be resolved once you sign the papers my attorney will deliver within the hour. A simple relinquishment of all claims to guardianship, along with control of the children's trust to Michael and myself as their legal custodians. And if I refuse," her voice hardened, "then you'll never see little Ethan again. And wouldn't that be tragic? To lose another child after your darling Claire?" The mention of his daughter's name from Victoria's lips nearly shattered Jack's control. "How did you get past security?" he demanded. "Who helped you?" "Money opens many doors, Jack. You of all people should know that. Now, do we have a deal? The papers for the child?" "I need proof he's alive and unharmed." "Check your email." Jack nodded to Daniel, who opened Jack's laptop. There in his inbox was a video file sent minutes ago. It showed Ethan in a car seat, apparently sleeping peacefully. "You have 1 hour to sign the papers. Then I'll tell you where to find the boy." The line went dead. Jack turned to the detective. "Did you trace it?" The man shook his head. "Burner phone, signal bouncing off multiple towers." Daniel was already examining the video, extracting metadata. "Wait," he said suddenly. "Look at this." He pointed to a reflection in the window beside Ethan, a distinctive rock formation visible for just a split second. "Devil's Backbone," the detective said immediately. "It's a nature preserve about 40 miles north of here. Popular hiking spot in summer. And completely deserted in winter," Daniel added. Jack was already moving. "I know where she's taking him. The hunting cabin." Years ago, his father had owned a small cabin in that area, a rustic retreat where he had taken Jack and Catherine as children. After his death, the property had transferred to Catherine as part of her inheritance, something Victoria would have discovered in the financial documents she had been so eager to obtain. "Stay with Lily and Noah," Jack instructed Maria. "No one in or out except Caroline or Daniel's people." In the garage, Jack selected the Rover, its four-wheel drive best suited to the snowy mountain roads. Daniel and 2 security personnel joined him, along with a detective who insisted on official presence despite Jack's reluctance to involve police directly. "She's desperate," Jack warned as they sped through the gathering darkness. "That makes her dangerous." The detective nodded grimly. "We'll approach with caution, but Mr. Westwood, don't do anything foolish. We want both you and the child to come home safely." The journey seemed endless, winding roads climbing higher into the mountains, snow beginning to fall in thick, obscuring flakes. Jack gripped the steering wheel, images of Catherine's final days, Lily's brave testimony, and Ethan's innocent face flooding his mind. Victoria had miscalculated badly. She believed Jack's wealth had made him soft, that he would fold rather than risk confrontation. She didn't understand that the same ruthless determination that had built his empire now focused entirely on saving his family. The cabin appeared suddenly through the snow, a small, dark structure nestled among pines. A single light burned in the window. Parked outside was a black SUV, its tire tracks still fresh. "No direct approach," the detective cautioned. "We need to assess the situation." But Jack was already moving, his footsteps silent in the new fallen snow. He circled the cabin, finding a back window partially obscured by overgrown branches. Through it, he could see Victoria pacing the small interior, phone in hand. A man Jack didn't recognize sat near the door, the bulge of a weapon visible beneath his jacket. And there, in a portable crib in the corner, lay Ethan, awake now and fussing quietly. Jack felt a primal rage rise within him at the sight of his nephew in Victoria's control. The woman who had pushed Catherine down the stairs, who had terrorized Lily, who had methodically plotted to steal three children's inheritance, now held an innocent baby as leverage. In that moment, Jack understood with perfect clarity what he would do to protect his family, something he had forgotten in the years since losing Claire and her mother. He signaled to the others, indicating positions. Then he returned to the front door and knocked three sharp raps. Inside, voices fell silent. Footsteps approached cautiously. "Who is it?" The voice belonged to the unknown man. "Jack Westwood. I'm alone." The door opened a crack, chain still in place. The man peered out suspiciously. "Where are the signed papers?" "In my coat. Let me in. It's freezing out here." After a moment's hesitation, the chain slid free. Jack entered, hands carefully visible, taking in every detail of the space. Victoria stood by the fireplace, her camel coat exchanged for a practical parka, her perfect hair slightly mussed for the first time since he'd met her. "That was fast," she remarked, her composure intact despite the circumstances. "I assume you've made the right decision. Where's my nephew?" Victoria gestured toward the portable crib, sleeping like an angel. "Now the papers?" Jack reached slowly into his coat, withdrawing not papers but a small digital recorder. He pressed play, and Victoria's earlier words filled the cabin. "What I've always wanted, what's rightfully Michael's by marriage, the Westwood fortune your father so inconveniently left to Catherine's brats." Victoria's eyes narrowed dangerously. "What is this?" "Insurance," Jack replied calmly. "Along with the tracking device in Ethan's teddy bear, the video evidence of your associate here taking him from the nursery after you deactivated the security cameras, and of course the police currently surrounding this cabin." Her face contorted with rage. "You're bluffing." "Am I? Victoria Carson? Or should I say Victoria Lawson? Or was it Victoria Mercer in Nevada before the fraud charges?" The man by the door shifted nervously, hand moving toward his concealed weapon. "I wouldn't," Jack warned. "Not if you want to leave here in anything other than handcuffs." Victoria's laugh held an edge of hysteria. "You think you've won? You have nothing. Nothing that will stand up in court." "Perhaps not," Jack conceded, "but I have this." He held up his phone, showing an email from Caroline Winters. Attached was a scan of a document bearing the official seal of the Colorado courts. "Judge Hamilton has recused himself from our case, effective immediately. Seems someone sent the Judicial Review Board evidence of certain financial irregularities between him and the law firm representing you and Michael. Offshore accounts, suspicious transfers, the kind of thing that ends careers and begins criminal investigations." Victoria's perfect composure finally cracked. "You can't prove any of that came from me." "I don't need to. The investigation alone will freeze all proceedings regarding the children. And in the meantime, as Catherine's closest blood relative, temporary custody reverts to me." He took a step toward Ethan's crib. "So I'll be taking my nephew and leaving now." "No," Victoria lunged forward, desperation replacing calculation. "You don't understand. I need those trusts. Michael has debts, gambling debts to people who don't forgive failure. Without that money, we're both dead." For the first time, Jack glimpsed the truth behind Victoria's ruthless pursuit of Catherine's children. Not mere greed, but survival. It changed nothing. "You should have thought of that before you pushed my sister down a flight of stairs," he said coldly. "Before you terrorized a 5-year-old child. Before you kidnapped an infant for ransom." He reached the crib, lifting Ethan gently. The baby blinked up at him, tiny fingers reaching for his face. "It's over, Victoria." What happened next unfolded in heartbeats. Victoria's associate drew his weapon. The detective burst through the door, his own gun raised. Shots echoed in the small space. Jack turned his body to shield Ethan, bracing for impact. But the bullet meant for him found Victoria instead, as she lunged forward in a final desperate attempt to reclaim her hostage. She collapsed against Jack, blood blooming across her parka, eyes wide with disbelief. "I only wanted what was owed me," she whispered. "What was promised." Then she was gone, taking her secrets and schemes with her. In the aftermath, as police and paramedics swarmed the cabin, Jack sat in the rover with Ethan cradled against his chest. The baby had somehow slept through the K, his tiny face peaceful in slumber. Jack watched the gentle rise and fall of his chest, marveling at the perfect trust of a child too young to understand how close he had come to losing everything. The drive back to Denver passed in silence, snow falling steadily outside the windows, erasing all traces of the night's events. By morning, Victoria's body would be removed from the cabin. Her accomplice would be in custody, already negotiating a deal. Michael Reynolds, upon learning of his wife's death and the collapse of their schemes, would check himself into a rehabilitation facility, signing away his parental rights in exchange for immunity from prosecution. But Jack knew none of this yet. He knew only that he was bringing Ethan home, back to Lily and Noah, back to the family that Catherine had entrusted to him with her final breath. Maria was waiting at the door when they arrived, Lily clutching her hand, Noah in her arms. When she saw Jack carrying Ethan, Lily broke free, running to them through the snow in her pajamas and bare feet. "You found him. You brought him back." Jack knelt, still holding Ethan, opening his free arm to gather Lily close. "I promised, didn't I? I promised to keep you all safe." Later, after the children were asleep, Jack and Maria tucked them in together, all three in the same room. Unwilling to have them separated even by walls, Jack stood at the window of his study, watching snow continue to fall. Carolyn called with confirmation of what he already knew. With Victoria dead and Michael voluntarily surrendering his parental rights, Jack's petition for permanent guardianship would face no opposition. The children were his now. His to protect, his to raise, his to love. He thought of Catherine, wondering if she could see them somehow from whatever came after this life. If she knew her children were safe, that her brother had kept his promise. He hoped so. Spring came to the mountains, melting winter's grip, bringing new life to a world long frozen. The glass mansion changed with the seasons, sterile minimalism giving way to the vibrant chaos of childhood. Legos appeared on coffee tables, once reserved for architectural magazines. Fingerprint smudges decorated windows that had previously been immaculate. The once silent halls echoed with laughter, with tears, with 1,000 small sounds that comprised a family's daily symphony. Jack changed too. The man who had once defined himself by boardroom victories and quarterly earnings now measured success by a different standard. A bedtime story that made Lily giggle, Noah's first steps across the living room, Ethan's triumphant grin when he learned to roll over. The corporate titan who had once intimidated billionaires now sat cross-legged on the floor, building block towers for small-ons to knock down, his suit jacket discarded, his tie long since removed by curious fingers. 1 year after Catherine's death, Jack stood in the doorway of what had once been his formal dining room, now transformed into an art studio for Lily. The little girl sat at an easel, her tongue caught between her teeth in concentration as she painted with the fierce focus that characterized everything she did. "What are you working on, sweetheart?" he asked. Lily turned, her face lighting up at the sight of him. "A present for Mommy, for her heaven birthday." Jack moved closer, looking at the canvas. Lily had painted a night sky filled with stars and streaks of green and purple, the northern lights she had seen during winter. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "Do you think she can see it from heaven?" Lily asked, adding another sweep of green to the painting. Jack knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I think your mother sees everything you do, and I think she's very, very proud of you." Lily smiled, a flash of pure joy that never failed to catch his breath. "She's proud of you too, Uncle Jack, for keeping your promise." That evening they visited Catherine's grave, bringing flowers and Lily's painting, which Jack had framed that afternoon. The twins toddled around the headstone, too young to understand but somehow gentle in their explorations. Lily arranged her offerings with solemn care, then stood back, slipping her hand into Jack's. "I told her we're happy now," she said simply. "I told her not to worry anymore." Jack squeezed her small hand, marveling at the resilience of children, at their capacity to heal, to love, to move forward without forgetting what lay behind. As twilight deepened into night, they drove home through the mountains, 3 children chattering in the back seat about ice cream and puppies and 1,000 other ordinary miracles. Jack watched them in the rearview mirror, these small lives entrusted to his care, and felt a peace he had believed forever lost after Claire's death. The glass mansion glowed like a lighthouse against the darkening sky, windows bright with promise. Home, not merely a structure of steel and glass, but something far more precious and fragile. Something built not of materials but of moments shared, of comfort given, of love freely offered and gratefully received. That night, after stories and songs and the sacred rituals of bedtime, Jack stepped onto the deck of the mansion. The night air carried the scent of pine and the first hint of summer warmth. Above him, stars wheeled in ancient patterns, bearing silent witness to the endless cycle of loss and renewal that shaped all human lives. And there, dancing across the heavens in ribbons of green and violet, the northern lights painted the darkness with impossible beauty. Jack heard the patio door slide open behind him, turned to find Lily standing there in her pajamas and winter boots. "You should be asleep, little one." "I saw the lights from my window," she explained, moving to stand beside him. "Mommy told me if I ever saw lights dancing in the sky, it meant she was watching over us." Jack lifted her into his arms so she could see better, her small weight a comfort against the cool night air. "Your mother was very wise." They stood together in companionable silence, watching the aurora shimmer across the night sky. After a while, Lily rested her head against his shoulder. "Uncle Jack?" "Yes, Lily? Are we home now? For always?" Jack turned to look at the child who had walked through a blizzard to save her brothers, who had stood up to adults who refused to hear her truth, who had taught him how to open his heart again after a decade of winter. "Yes, Lily," he said softly. "We're home now, for always." Inside the glass house on the mountain, two baby boys slept peacefully in their cribs, unaware of how fiercely they were loved, how bravely they had been fought for. Outside, a man and a little girl watched heaven paint pictures across the sky, bound together by loss and love and promises kept. And somewhere beyond the dancing lights, Catherine Westwood looked down upon the family she had entrusted to her brother's care and found it good.